Hey, everybody. It is your grown woman on the move, Osiris, with 15 minutes to show. Guess who we are? We're in beautiful Topanga Canyon. It's so lovely. The birds are chirping. I'm sitting here with this very debonair and handsome man, actor, philanthropist, all-around curious lifestyle liver, Mr. Richard Sarradet. We say Sarraday. For those of you out there, I had to do a little homework on the last name Sarradet because online they pronounce it Sarradet. But since Richard is originally from New Orleans, they pronounce it Sarraday like the Creole people do. By the way, shout out to Miss Lolita Cherry with the Creole Foundation. You're doing a great job in New Orleans there. Hey, Richard, that's what I'm saying. Richard was just in New Orleans. So what took you into New Orleans?
Well, that's where I'm from, and that's where my whole family is.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're the only one on the West Coast?
I'm the only one. My 4 brothers and sisters are all in New Orleans.
Really?
Well, 3. My sister died about 6 months ago. He was the matriarch, the oldest. Mm-hmm. My mom was already gone. I was unable to travel for the wedding because I was still too weak from the adventure I've been through with cancer. But I'm totally clean, and I lost about 40 pounds, so I'm a muscle.
And he still looks fine. He is still fine.
Extremely thin. I got to run around the shower to get wet, you know.
But most people are trying to lose weight. You don't have to worry about it now.
I know. That's what my wife says.
Oh, she's a wonderful person to be with you during this time in your growth.
I would not be here.
Let's talk about where you've come from. Now, I know we were talking on camera, just for the audience out there, we were talking on camera briefly. He was filling me in on his stint in Knots Landing, but his most adventurous portrayal was a lawyer on General Hospital during the days of Luke and Laura. And I think you were on General Hospital from 1979 to 1981. Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. Just a little bit, we want to stay on it, just to remind people who this fine man is. Okay, just so you remember. Let's go.
Well, I played Howard Lansing. I came to town in the storyline from my brother's wedding. We were kind of estranged, and the storyline was set for me to fall in love with his wife, and I'm always chastising my brother because I feel he treats her badly, you know, and it was going to build up to a big climax. And when I auditioned for the show, that was the scene where she comes over to get some counseling from me about her husband, my brother, and I end up trying to give her advice and end up confessing my love for her and giving her a big kiss at the end, you know, which was kind of exciting because, I was in the waiting room and there's a whole line of actors going in they've been searching on both coasts for this new character. And I could hear through the wall, even though I couldn't make out exactly the words that the other actors were doing, I could hear the tone in their voice. And they were all like real handsome kind of soap opera guys, you know. I went, they always like these pretty people. I'm not sure I'm going to make this cut. But through the wall, I could hear, and I heard his acting. I heard them acting. Heard them reciting lines, you know. And so I got a little more relaxed because I really work organically, you know, and I was well prepared. So when I got in there, you know, there's a room full of people, you know, from ABC and from General Hospital.
It's all the big people.
Loretta Young's daughter was also part of our staff. So anyway, I'm like 2/3 of the way through the scene, and I go up. What's my next line? You know, oh God, I don't know my next line.
You couldn't remember?
For a moment, I lost it, you know. And so I did something which the other actors hadn't done because it was an improv, you know. She was standing there, I was standing there, and I kind of looked at her and went, oh God, I don't know what my next line is, you know. So what I did is I went, sit down. And she was kind of startled. And so she sat down on the edge of the coffee table, waiting to see what happened, you know, and there was just enough time for me to recollect my thoughts. And then I launched back into dialogue. When it was done, the producer of the show, who was Gloria Monty, legendary, you know, Gloria Monty, you wouldn't know she's a producer. She was in a little sack dress. She had about 4 bags and circles under her eyes, smoking cigarettes, right? Little Italian lady from New York.
That's what I thought. Italian from New York, I was just thinking.
Tough, but brilliant, right? And she jumps out in front of the crowd, and said, "Now that's an actor, honey. Can you be here at 5 o'clock for a screen test?" I went, "Well, I got to go wait tables, but I can be here by 5 o'clock. And by the way, have you done nighttime?" I said, "Yeah, I just did the Waltons a couple of weeks ago." Good. Be here at 5 o'clock. I want to put you on tape, you know. And so I think what they saw is, in soap opera, you got to do 44 minutes of television a day. You don't have time for people to go up and restart a lot, right? And when they knew what the next line was. They could see, that I made it look like I didn't know what to say next, which is what you should be doing in real life, you know. And unfortunately, the thing clicked back in. I told her, sit down, and then the scene went on, you know. So I think that was a big thing. She went like, this is an actor I can count on. It's like later in my last 6 months of the show, I had a terrible bicycle accident, right? Smashed my face, broke my teeth and bone up here, you know. This was hamburger meat, cut through my lip, cut through my eyebrow, had gravel in my face. And the kid who hit me just saw me and took off, you know. So anyway, I called the studio and said, I'm going to be a little late. I had a late call anyway. I had a little bike accident. Oh, no, I'll be there. I'll be there by 1:30. Then I had to. Some guys in the pickup truck stopped, threw my beat-up now bike in the back of the pickup truck, and took me to see the Sinai. I made it to the set after I saw the doctors, and they kind of picked the stuff out of my face and gave me an anti-swelling shot. I raced to my dentist. He had to create a temporary bridge. All this, you know, in an
Just to
hour
act.
time, just to make it to the set.
Just to make it to the set.
Because I didn't want to give him an excuse to cut my contract short, because I hadn't been saving enough money, and I didn't want to stay, but I wanted to play out the contract. And it's funny, later she'd always at parties and stuff say, now this man, you know, what a trooper, you know. I think that really got me the last 6 months of my contract.
I think so. You were telling us something about Luke and Laura, and I wanted to hear what you were about to say. Remember you were saying, oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, no,
Some juicy stuff for the soap people out there.
Luke and Laura, you know, Luke was supposed to be from the wrong side of the tracks, and of course Laura was the precious young thing, you know. I was her lawyer in a previous murder trial that she was accused of murder, that her mother tried to take the fall for. Anyway, Luke was scheduled to leave the show the next week, and his last show he was going to be killed. They're bringing in somebody else, you know. We had the annual Beverly Hills Hilton Hotel fan club convention, and 1,000 people in a huge hall, you know, all fans coming from all over the country, and General Hospital was the #1 show at the time. And all of a sudden we hear all this commotion at the door. I was talking to Gloria Monty and Jackie Smith, who's head of daytime, and Luke made an entrance, right, coming in. And the women were going, Luke, rape me.
Shut up.
And I was up there with Jackie.
Rape you?
And
Raping them.
because that's what happened. He kind of raped Laura, you know, and it was like, and he was going to get killed for it, you know. But when they saw the reaction of the audience, all these women like going for Luke, they looked at each other and went, what have we got here? The next day, they called him in, gave him a huge boost in salary, right? Renewed his contract.
Wow.
And he just retired from the show, what, last year?
Are you kidding?
No.
They stayed on that show for that whole
don't know
time,
how
huh?
you could do it.
Remember how they went off and then I think they came back or something?
Soap
They would always make it so it'd be exciting so you could stay tuned in the show. Which brings me up to this now. Check this out, you guys. This guy is an actor. We want to know, how do you apply acting to your curiosity about living and life and all the things you're interested in, including hanging out with Dan Ecker on Don Ecker on Dark Matters Radio.
It goes like this.
Which comes on Friday, you guys. Friday nights, Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday, just so you know.
Yeah. And I co-hosted with him. And Don and I have known each other since the early 90s. Back then I was...
Don Ecker.
Don Ecker. I was looking to transition out of acting because, you know, it's out of that prime age range for a lot of work. My work was slowing down a little bit. And I wanted to move on to something more creative. Television is great, you know, it pays the bills, but it's not really creative, you know. I really want to get to movies, which I...
Kind of controlled, huh?
Yeah. So... I
love that. Hello.
We're up here in Topanga Canyon. But anyway, I never thought about being an actor. I always wanted to be a writer, but I kept getting grabbed and said, would you do this for us? Would you? So eventually I went, you know, it's a lot easier than writing. But then I had to go learn my craft, you know. So when I came out of the Army, I went back to University of Kansas. We had a fabulous theater department. I spent 2 years there and then landed in Hollywood like every bohunk. Well, I'm here to be a star, you know. And fortunately I had a few connections which kind of helped me find a place to live. You know, Don Johnson was also a graduate of KU. And his ex-girlfriend was somebody I was dating at the time. So she said, oh, you should Don and things like that, you know. So I kind of connected that way. But as far as like going into, I wanted to produce shows on UFOs because...
How did you go from General Hospital to being interested in... You were saying about how the UFOs... How'd you get from General Hospital, Knots Landing? I even heard that you were on The Bionic Woman. I used to love that show. To UFOs and paranormal activity and dark matter radio
Okay,
with
that's a really good
Don
point.
Ecker.
As a young kid and growing up in New Orleans, much like my grandma, know where somebody was or know that when coming home, had, I guess you would call them, I don't know, paranormal or psychic experience, whatever terminology you want to use. But it's not something I learned to discuss with my family because it was all like, what, you know. But when I came to California, it was like, oh, I found home. All the other nuts are out here, and now I've joined them, the altered state, you know, California. And then I had a chance to go to all these societies and UFO things and, you know, psychic societies. So I kind of launched myself into learning about these, going to their meetings, learning about it all, you know. Ended up with being very involved with the Edgar Cayce Foundation.
I love Edgar Cayce. I am an avid supporter of Edgar Cayce.
I was very involved with them. I had a weekly study group in my house, you know. It was a very important time for me because I was severely depressed. I'd just gone through the breakup of my first marriage, my choice, when I realized we were going in different directions, and I had to go find myself. I married my high school sweetheart.
Oh, well, that's different.
So it didn't last, you know. It didn't work out. Because when I talked about acting, it was like, no, you were going to be a college professor. You know, we're going to have people over on Sunday afternoons for tea and discuss literature. And I'm going, I don't know about that. Acting, do you know how hard it is to succeed as an actor? A grandmother would cut articles out and send them to me like, SAG actors, how many work and how many don't. So they're going, you're crazy. And I'm going, yeah, but that's what I'm going to do, you know. But after high school, I got a scholarship to a small college in Santa Fe, New Mexico, called the College of Santa Fe. It was run by the same order of Christian brothers that ran my high school. And I was kind of the all-American boy in high school, you know. I had the civics club, you know, all that kind of stuff. Had a lot of extracurriculars and, you know, an A average and high scores and stuff. So I got a scholarship to a small college in Santa Fe. Santa Fe is about 70 miles north of Albuquerque. And I had a roommate from Texas, from Galveston. I called him Tex, and he called me Doris. Or Sarah, because of Doris Day.
Oh, gosh.
What he says, hey, Sarah, where's your sister Doris? He's a great guy. I'm still in touch with him. We were on our way back from Albuquerque to Santa Fe in the afternoon, and I was driving, and Tex says, hey, Sarah, what's that? And he points out the side window, and we're going up La Bajada Hill, which is a big climb, because Santa Fe's at 7,000 feet, Albuquerque's at 5. And you had a line of trees on the other side and a snow fence, you know, even though it was just fall. And we go up the hill, you could see something silver paralleling us on the other side of the fence and the trees. We couldn't make it out. It looked like, well, we're only doing about 65, 70 miles an hour, and this thing was not...
And you weren't drunk or high, were you?
Oh, didn't even know what that stuff was. But, didn't drink at all. And it's the afternoon. And so we're looking, I'm trying to drive and looking, what is that? You know, what is that? What is that? And you got where it kind of leveled out. As it leveled out, we could see this thing clearly, and I didn't know what I was going to look at. I thought it might be a helicopter, but there was no noise. Instead, we got to the top of the hill, and we cleared the fence where I could see. This thing turned on its side and went like that. And when it turned on its side, it went, that's a flying saucer. You know, it was a flying saucer, about the size of a jet plane. And it just peeled off. But the thing that's curious about it is, you know, there were stories about Roswell, but I wasn't really tuned into that stuff at the time. But I had seen the Air Force was talking about they're developing flying saucers. And there's Kirtland Air Force Base there. And I went, son of a gun, we do have them. Which I was really excited about because I grew up loving flying saucers. I saw all the 50s science fiction stuff. Me and my partner used to build rockets from scratch and launch them, you know.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That was your calling even then.
Yeah, yeah. But California, I got out here, and there was all the stuff. Edgar Cayce organization, I began getting into that and meditating with the group. And I've slowly worked my way through my depression and really turned my life around, really found some direction. And I began having UFO dreams back in the early 70s, you know, which is like bizarre, you know. I remember one, I was in the dream, and suddenly dream changed, and I was kind of wide awake, and I found myself walking down this corridor, which kind of curved slowly, kind of dimly lit, no light source. Then I come to an opening like in a big high-rise you have where the elevators are. And so I got this place, and I went, what is this? All dimly lit, very nicely appointed, you know, kind of low light, but no light source. And I see this long window to my left, so I walk over to it and look out, and I went, oh, there was the earth down there. You know, I could see the earth. And I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. This is really happening. And I turn around, there's a man standing there. very self, you know, very almost military-like, you know. He's standing there very straight. He was kind of a combination of velvet and steel. There was a real softness in him, and there's still a real, well, not coldness, I'd say firmness, you know. And I looked at him and I said, this is really happening, isn't it? He goes, yeah, get over it. There's a lot of work to do.
Wow.
And I woke up, you know. So I don't know.
Wow.
Because of my interest in UFOs, my background being a rocket maker and you know, being into UFOs and the 50s science fiction, I think our subconscious chooses things which seem appropriate to our belief system.
For our growth at the time.
At the time, yeah. So whether that was a literal thing or I tend to think it was more representative, you know. And I looked at it that way in a very Jungian way, and it led me to really open up my mind and think about things differently, you know. And I could never put away that and then when Bob Lazar came out, that physicist Area 51, saying that he'd worked on back-engineered craft, by that time I was involved with Don Ecker. I partnered with UFO Magazine, which is the only UFO magazine in the country. And
Are they still around? I couldn't find.
They sold it in 95.
Okay.
No, 98 I think it was, I'm not sure. To that guy who does all the UFO hunters, William Burns. They ended up owing Don and Vicky a lot of money, never paid it, you know. But during that time, Don and I were developing projects. We came up with a series, a documentary series about UFOs. Each case based on real stuff, you know, UFOs and Mars anomalies and all that kind of stuff. We'd outline a whole season of episodes, 32 episodes back then. And we went out and started pitching. And I was really good at the time getting into doors, you know, because first of all, I had a little bit of reputation still, so I had a little credit.
Little credit.
Yeah. And I was a good salesman, you know. So I'd get into all these places. I went to Paramount and pitched the head of Paramount and a few other people in the room for our series, you know.
It was called the Dark Matter series?
No, this was, we hadn't come with a formal name for it. Don had a radio show on the cable radio network doing interviews back then with all the primary, you know, like Bud Hopkins, you know, and everybody. I mean, and of course, abductions became a big issue back at that time. So we interviewed a lot of abductees. And Don is interviewed, and Don's a great interviewer. And he still does great interviews. You know, we still do. He does one night of interviews and one night of open lines with Don.
With questions.
Right. So with this series, I pitched it several places, and I pitched a couple other projects. ABC was interested in doing Don's life story because he has such an interesting life story. Vietnam vet. He lost his wife and his child. His child was 8 years old, got meningitis, and died within 24 hours. His wife, within a year, their marriage fell apart because they lost a kid. Then his wife hooked up with an ex-con that Don had put in jail.
Wow.
So Don was part of the SWAT team in Idaho at the time, working for the SWAT team in Idaho. And he didn't have any particular interest in UFOs, always interested in you know, paranormal stuff, but not UFOs in particular. He was always interested, though. He was called out several times in Utah, and he did the various work, undercover work, about these cattle mutilations were taking place. All these ranchers out west would find their cattle strangely mutilated. And that interested Don, and he found something on the Paranet, which was the first BBS, you know, before
Yes.
where we are now. And he saw something about cattle mutilations, so he began researching it. And he saw Vicky Ecker writing about it in UFO magazine, so he contacted her. They ended up forming a relationship. He ended up moving to L.A. They ended up getting married. I was their best man eventually, you know. But that brought Don full blast into the UFO field. And he's a smart guy and great interviewer. It's a great show, and I really recommend anybody because he's not, you know, he comes from a cop background.
It's not ooh.
It's a cop background, you know. It's like, and he busted a lot of hoaxes and stuff.
So he's pretty authoritative.
Great, exposés. And you don't want to get into a pissing contest with Don Ecker because you're going to lose, you know. But so we take a rather evidentiary view of the subject, even though we realize that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. What we have to admit is we have all these phenomena, right? We have all these reports, but we don't know, so we tend to impose our own biases on it. Oh, it's the ETs from Zeta Reticula, because all the stories, and of course the government is very active in promoting these stories for their own agenda, at the same time as undermining them. They play both sides of the fence. That's counterintelligence. I served a little bit in that earlier in my Army career. But anyway, so that's how it evolved. Final point, when I pitched the show at Paramount, they got all excited. They gave me a 15-minute window, and they kept me for 4 hours, me and Don. And they questioned us and questioned notes, and was so excited.
It's an interesting subject.
We will get back to you on Monday, you know, really excited. Monday, Tuesday, not anything. You don't want to rush back, So wait a couple of weeks, nothing. So I reached the secretary, and they said, "Oh, we decided to go a different way," But it's so Hollywood, no respect, like don't let you know anything else. They tell you, "Oh, we're really hot in this," and
Strictly business.
just
No heart.
well, it would just be, I think, good business to call and say, "We really like your material, but it's just not right for us now. We're going a different way," But they don't do that.
The assistant or somebody could have done that. That's a pretty easy move. But listen, speaking on this particular subject that is becoming more and more, of interest as we move, and in mainstream, as we move more into the future, 2017, 2018, 2027, those eras now, there seems to be a competitiveness between I would say the conservative groups that we have here on the planet and other groups that are channeling through different people and speaking. They're speaking from up here and we're down here somewhere, and they're telling us, you guys got to prepare for all of this stuff. There's no one going to come to save you. You're going to have to go inside, dig it out, and fix it. You guys did it. How much of that is true? Should we be really, really concerned? A lot of people have an image of UFOs on TV where they're frightening. They're going to kill you. They're going to do this and things. So, in speaking of those abductees that you guys spoke to, how much worry and concern do we need to have?
Based on our experience with UFOs since the 40s, I don't think if these advanced, whatever it is,
beings,
wanted to take us out, they could have done it a million times. So the relationship is not one of adversarial that we see from their behavior. The only time UFOs have caused any problems for the American military is when the American military and the Russian military were pursuing them in the 50s. They said, "We got to bring one down. We got to find out what these things are." But we lost over 600 planes, and the Russians lost twice that many chasing UFOs. They finally went, "Okay, new policy: do not
chase the UFO,
do not intercept, do not engage, just report," right? And that's the policy took from then on, because there was never any aggression by the UFOs, right? Until we were aggressive, and then they would defend themselves.
And aren't they more advanced than anything that we're using?
Well, look how advanced we are, and yet we're still torturing people. We're still dropping bombs on people. I don't think, if there's no civilization, they may be technologically way ahead of us. I suspect the picture is very complicated and big, because once you open your mind to the world without becoming just too credulous, which you see so much in the UFO standing, we don't even know what the right questions are. But we've evolved knowing what questions we had are probably not the right questions. Do not assume that these are literally extraterrestrials, Some people think this phenomena, like Jacques Vallée, the famous French researcher, the more he studied UFOs, and he did first-hand interviews, he writes brilliantly. He's a computer genius, He lives now up in Silicon Valley, and he's still involved with computers. But Jacques Vallée said, it's not much different than the fairies in the Middle Ages, enter the fairy ring and you might disappear for 20 years, that kind of stuff. And the phenomena seems to be able to appear in a cultural context appropriate to the mythologies of those people at that time. So our suspicion is that a lot of the UFO phenomena, which may look extraterrestrial, is just another disguise or cultural representation that these beings can do. And they seem to have the ability to do it, to show up and, look at UFO reports, Osiris. The range of strangeness in UFO reports, guy getting that little short guy getting out of a saucer and offering a guy a pancake, all these weird things you see happen, another guy looks at him, "What time is it?" Things you go, that doesn't make any sense. I tend to look at the UFO phenomena as Jacques Vallée does, as some kind of human control mechanism, where it's like this parent or this superior or this whatever it is, source, which we can't even define yet, and it may be part of our own, collective unconscious in Jungian terms, but I think it's more than that. They seem to want to guide us along certain avenues, and in Jungian terms, as Carl Jung talked about, he said, "I'm not ruling out that there are physical UFOs because he can manifest physical things like tulpas, right? But I think this phenomena is like a part of a function of evolution, and whoever the evolutionary fairies are guiding us, to make us think in certain directions, make us move in certain directions, right?
So kind of control.
Kind of control. I don't necessarily think it's negative. I think it's educational. Like they're trying to guide us like you would guide a child. He's falling down. You don't want to help him too much, but you don't want to break his head open either. So you might grab him when he's about to fall, not being too much of a hovering parent. But giving this, we humans, which are evolving, a direction and a way of behaving which will lead us in the direction they're trying to lead us, which is evolving into more conscious beings.
Fifth and sixth, seventh dimension. The third, fourth is like, wow, come on, really? We're still stuck on race and people's sexuality. Who cares?
Well,
we have a whole...
See, that's part of the big change. You can see it's really breaking out now. It's really breaking out. It has since the 60s. More and more and more. And now it's breaking out big time.
Do you think they need to, I personally feel they need to monitor a little bit more because it's so, human beings are so unpredictable. Like we could easily do this, but we could also easily do that.
That was what concerned the FBI back in the fear of communism days in the 50s. It's like, and with the government, right? They formed the Robertson panel to invest this question, like, what will be the effect on the public of admitting that there's this unknown presence, maybe extraterrestrial, that we can't control? And so they brought in a panel of people. One of them was Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, female anthropologist who did the thing on small islands. And she was part of the panel, and some engineers and some priests, and they had representatives of all different groups there at the Robertson panel at CIA, named after the guy who set up Robertson. And the conclusion to the report was that, according to Margaret Mead, she said, well, any time from her experience, like our sophisticated civilization going to South Pacific, where they still live close to nature and she said, anytime a technologically superior culture meets a technologically inferior culture, it usually rapidly leads to the dissolution of the inferior culture. Their whole understanding of their mythologies dissolve, right? They lose their core, they lose their raison d'etre for the culture.
Raison.
And so the Robertson panel went, oh man, that's not good. They said the most threatened groups would be, the inferior culture, especially the scientists and engineers, because everything they know is wrong.
And it's from a book.
Yeah, it's from a book. And this thing is like too jarring. The other concern was religious people, based on what happened in Samoa. Like, you lose the core of your religion because it's being exposed that there's something behind the curtain that's not what you think it is. So that's when the U.S. government and the Air Force and the CIA decided the best way to handle it, because they thought, enemies could exploit this for psychological warfare. So they said, we got to prevent this, especially in the middle of the communist scare in the 50s, right? And Truman signed off on it. The policy would be ridicule and denial. Explain them away. Anybody who believes in stuff is
quacko.
And you've seen they maintain that policy ever since. Anytime you see the subject of UFOs covered on major media, they always go, oh, well, here's one here.
An isolated incident,
right,
or something like a hover.
But they have to be sophisticated in their terms, like, oh, we're too smart to buy into that stuff. They always have to deal with a smirk and kind of a sarcasm, like, those loonies who believe in UFOs. And here's one. That, in the past 2 years, well, gradually over the past, 30 years, but in the past 2 years, with Tom DeLonge coming out with that, who Tom DeLonge is, Blink 182?
I do.
And that whole story.
And you guys do too.
Yeah. And suddenly the media is treating the subject seriously. Well, it's a sea change. When the media starts going, instead of smirking, they go, well, that's interesting. What do you think of that, Now, whether that is being, again, a source of manipulation and disinformation by the government for purposes we don't know, because the entire subject of UFOs is the most highly classified national security secret that exists, according to Wilbur Smith from Canada.
Of course, I would think so.
Classified higher than the hydrogen bomb.
Speaking on that, though, about the media, do you guys feel that as we move more into the future, more and more will be exposed, of course, we move more into the future, do you think major television and all of the major media will have shows or programming, You know, because right now I've only seen one show on UFOs, and it's called UFOs, and I think it's on the History Channel or something.
Yeah, they have these
But
documentaries.
I mean a major show that comes on like weekly,
like X-Files?
X-Files and all of
You got to
that.
go back as far as to the 90s, because when Bob Lazar came out saying he was a physicist at Area 51 who was asked to work on a back engineered craft and given certain briefing documents, there's a lot of holes in the story. But I've interviewed Bob Lazar, and I've been in his house, and he's a conundrum. He even admits that sometimes when you go to work, you know, the security is so stringent that it periodically would call you in to debrief you and see who you've been talking to, what's going on with you, do a psych evaluation. And they also use drugs and hypnosis to make sure you're telling the truth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Lazar admits that, yeah, he had been through some of that in security. Of course, he hated it because he was kind of a free spirit. There are a lot of holes in the story, but there was something about a story that's still quite compelling. At that time, in the early 90s, with Don, we went out there several times. Don has interviewed Bob, and Don's been in his house several times. We took the allegations as, well, let's investigate. Let's see if there's any truth to this. And to this day, Don and I remain undecided on Lazar's scenario. Was it a disinformation campaign, a vacuum cleaner operation? What I mean by that is the government was concerned about who was too interested in Area 51. And the Japanese at that time, Nippon Television, seemed extremely interested. One of the researchers from L.A., Norio Hayakawa, had a Nippon Television team. He took out to the borders of, and they filmed and got some really interesting footage. And to kind of reinforce Bob Lazar's claims, he told a few people about it, and he said they do testing about 10:30 on Wednesday nights. And so he took him out, the famous black mailbox.
At Area 51.
Yeah, on the outskirts of Area 51. See, there's one rancher who has a ranch inside the perimeter, right? And he has a road that goes to his ranch. A little beyond that is the gates that say you can't go any further, but it's still part of the thing. So he took him there, and at 10:30, sure enough, they're looking. He said, "Look over here." This bright light rose up, glowing, kind of getting brighter and dimmer, and hovered there, and then suddenly shot straight at him and straight back, right? And then moved right and left, with extreme speed. And so, for him to know that means, and to take him out there and say there's going to be a test at this time, and show it to him, and it takes place, whatever it is, it's hooked up. It's hooked up at Area 51. Whether he's being used as a patsy, or whether he's saying, look, see, those are the flying saucers we're working on. Any way you look at it, that connection made Lazar's story more compelling because he was able to demonstrate what he said was happening by taking him out to a time that only he knew when they were testing it.
Now, don't you think that us, maybe subconsciously, our human culture here, we have really actually predicted a lot of this stuff through TV. I mean, I remember Lost in Space, all of the sci-fi things that used to come on. Where you used to see that stuff on TV, and all of that stuff is here now. Are you kidding? I'm a total Trekkie and all the sci-fi things. But a lot of those things are coming to force. So one of the final questions, because we have to go, one of the final questions is, how do we apply, those people that are conscious, how do we apply that consciousness to our daily lives without feeling that you're outside of the box, or you're weird or strange, or almost like you can't relate to normal people? See how famous he is? That's people ringing him now, trying to get him on some show. So what do you think about that?
I think, let me how to phrase this. I think it's like watching the temperature rise in a pot of water, and the idea of critical mass, like the 100th monkey. Do you know that? You know what that is?
Yeah.
You teach an animal species like monkeys how to do something, right? And then he shows another monkey, and what they found is by the time they get to the 100th monkey, monkeys on the other side of the world have adapted the same behavior.
Wow. Are you serious?
And that's the morphogenetic field, as I would say. We are, and the same thing is true with us. So as the interest and the right curiosity and the fact that people are waking up to, on other levels, you might say spirituality. See, for me, there is no contradiction between spirituality and true science. Ultimately, they're going to be the same thing.
Same thing. It's nature.
So I think we have to just keep moving forward, waking up, be careful, don't allow yourself to be deceived. Everybody gets deceived, right? Just don't jump off the cliff early. It's this, you know. Oh, they're coming to eat us.
Until more is exposed.
Yeah. Oh, they're demons. That's just cultural biases, you know, that come with the territory, that people impose, kind of confirmation bias, you know. Like when I had that dream. I knew this was real. I knew this was real. You know, that's just because I felt
Because it's you, yeah.
Right. So I think what we're going to see, Osiris, is that there's a gradual heating of a pot of water. That's what's happening. It's a long-term process. I was involved with this character from Naval Intelligence back in the 90s, Mike Younger in Com 12. And he had some very interesting things to say.